Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to continue with our series Let's Get Cooking. This is episode, I'm going to call it 14B because we had 14 where we started the prep table, 14A where we found a few bugs, and this is 14B completing the prep table. In today's episode we're going to implement some functionality that it will check when you start a new order what ingredients are on the table, and check them off with your pinned recipe list if appropriate. We'll also start implementing the chopping board. This will come into play a lot later on in the game as well. So without further ado, let's get going. And the first thing I want us to do is we're going to open up our BPI appliances. So go to your Blueprints interface folder. The BPI appliances, you see we have just the two functions, an ingredient and a set ingredients list and refresh UI. So we're going to add a new function and we're going to just call it check for existing ingredients. And we can go ahead and pop that in the ingredients category. Compile. There's no inputs, no outputs, nice and simple. We can go ahead and close that. So now we're going to go to our, double checking for a moment, we're going to go to our appliances, I believe. One moment. So we're going to open up our prep table. And if you've been following along, you would have this function here called set ingredients on table at startup. So we know whether we've already got some ingredients when we start the game. So we're going to implement that in our new interface function. So we're going to look in our interfaces folder, our ingredients, check for existing ingredients. We're going to double click that. And we're simply going to look for in our event here, event am I going blind? Set ingredients on startup is what we want. I must be going blind. Yep, here we are. Okay, so we're going to drag that in. Blind this morning. We're going to drag that in and we're simply going to run that. Okay, so that should solve that issue of if we choose a recipe and no ingredients already on the table, we can check that. But before we need to do it, we need to call this. So to do that, we go to our BP Kitchen Manager. We find our event start new order. Just going to double check because my brain's not 100% with it this morning. So we've got our start new order. Let's see if I've changed anything. Make stage from recipe. Getting a validated version of the recipe. Set ingredients list. That's fine. We're going to drag the refresh UI out here. We're going to use from here. We're going to say check for existing ingredients. We're going to use the message. We're going to call that here and join that in check here. You can go ahead and put another reload node in here to neaten things up. We're now calling that, so hopefully that should work. So let's have a quick test of that. In order to test that works, we need to put some items on the table. So what I'm going to do is drag that one across to the table. It's on the table and not hovering above it or behind it. Okay. Yep, that one's nice on the table. We're going to drag some bread over as well. We're just going to put the two items on here for now. So we've got some bread and we've got some jam. Going to go ahead and play. And he says press tab to open the recipe book. So let's show. Now what we're expecting to happen is when we pin the recipe, it should have two of the items already checked. So let's press tab. I'm going to choose bottom jam. I'm going to pin the recipe. And as you see, it has bread and butter already there. So we know that that works well. And if we drop the butter, we have all three checked. So lovely job. That's part one finished and done. Okay, so we're going to do part two now, where we're going to implement this part of the board here. We're also going to have to update our recipes and our instructions so that we get the correct messaging from our hints. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do the data assets first. Let's start with the easier part. We're going to go to our data, go to our data assets, our recipes, and let's go ahead and open both of these. If we shift click and just press enter, it will open both of them for you, or it should do. Sorry, that didn't work for me. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and open them individually. And you're pretty much going to do the same changes on both of these. So for your instructions here, where we got completed here, we're going to add another one. And that's number 6. Number 6 is going to be completed. Number 5 is going to be, okay, what we've got to do is we've got to move everything down. So number 5 is going to be bread jam. Bread butter. There. And here we're going to say on chopping board. Okay. Already have that here. And in our prep stages, we need to move things down a bit. Now, this isn't as easy as we know. We can go ahead and add another one. And we're going to change these. So again, we've got to move them down. So we're going to change this one to be, let's go ahead and do it from the top here. So we're going to toast bread and toaster. Going to change this one to on chopping board instead of spread jam. And we're going to set this to none. Don't need any. We're going to say, you can set it to toast, I believe would be fine. Let's just check what I've done on here. I've set it for bread, but this should also be set to bread. We can leave it on toast, it doesn't really matter. No, we're going to set this to bread because we don't actually change the name of that. So on chopping board, this one is butter, and we're going to change this to bread butter. It's going to be spread jam, so we need to change this to jam. This one is going to be now completed. So we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to match the 6 above there. And we're going to add another one in here. Now these don't have to be in any order, so we can just go ahead and add one to the end. And we're going to say this is on chopping board. I believe I used that one. Yep. And I'm going to say put. I'm going to copy and paste it because my typing is painful. Put first ingredient on chopping board. Okay. Save that. And we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's all fine. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and do the same in our button jam as well, except we don't need so many. So we're going to add another one here. This is going to be 5. This can be completed. This is bread jam. This is bread butter. And this is on chopping board. We're going to add another stage here. We're going to move them all down. So instead of spread butter, we're going to say on chopping board. And that should be bread. Spread butter now, and that should be butter. Spread jam, jam, none, none. Sorry, we're going to say completed and none. And the same as the last one before we did here, we're going to add another element. In fact, we're going to change this one. We're going to add this to on chopping board. And we're going to go ahead and paste the first ingredient on chopping board. And we're going to add the none just to be a safety. We should also do that on the other one. Okay, so for safety, it's do none. Save that. I'm going to go ahead and add none also in the toast one, just so we've got a safety. So if none is selected, it will give you some sort of message rather than error. We can go ahead and close that now. These are done. And our next stage is we're going to open up the prep table. So go to the prep table. Remember we had it open before. Go to the viewport. And what we want to do now is we want to get our, first of all, we want to add, we have our grab point. We've added this static mesh of the breadboard. Okay. But we need to add another box collision. So highlight your pivot point, click add, and just type in box. Look for box collision. You see it's in totally the wrong place. First thing we're going to do is we're going to move our pivot to the right place. So highlight your pivot, and in your location, yes, in your location, we're going to do -10, 70, and 87. These are numbers that work for me. And if you've been following along, they should work for you. In our box, we're going to rename this just to make it a little bit more sense. We're going to call this board box. And we're going to change the size of this. So box is then 32, 32. And the last one we're going to make is 5. Make it a little bit narrower. So now you see It's not too fast. Now you see we have this box above here. Okay, make sure you compile and save as we go along. And I'm just checking on my okay, so let's go to our event graph. Before we do that, we're going to right click on our board here, add an event on command begin overlap. We're going to use that. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a nice new function just to make things a little bit neater in our event graph. So let's go ahead to our functions. We're going to add a new function. Handle item dropped on board. Okay, this is exactly what it says on the tin. We're going to have an input. And we're going to call it other actor. And this is of type object. Boolean objects, so we don't really care what it is as long as we have an object reference. So basically whatever is dropped on it, we can do something with. Okay. First thing we can do is drag out of here. We're going to say give ingredient data asset. Okay. So we're going to make that. We're going to promote this to a local variable. We're going to call it L ingredient. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, whatever's dropped on here, we're going to check whether we can actually, it's the right thing before we call this function. Whatever is dropped on here, we're going to say, okay, what's your ingredients? Okay, give me your ingredients, and that's what we're using here. We're also going to get our kitchen manager. We're going to use our give recipe. Choose the message. We're going to first of all check, is this valid? We want to make sure we have something on or a recipe already selected before we can do anything. If it is valid, we're going to promote this to a local variable. I'm going to call this L recipe, like so. If it's not valid, we're going to call our add chef comment. And I'm just going to copy and paste. And what I've written in here is no recipe selected. You need to select a recipe first. Up to you what message you want to add to that. It could be abusive to your player, do whatever you like. It's entirely up to you, it's your game. Okay, so next thing we want to do is get our kitchen manager again. You could drag off with the same one, but it just makes no difference. So and from there we're going to say give ingredient for current stage message. This is why it's important in our data asset on shopping board. We make sure we set this to be the correct ingredient. Okay. Then we're going to drag in our local ingredient that we made. And we're going to say, is this equal, so equal, make sure it's just equal enum. We're going to get ingredient type from there, and we're going to say, are these equal? Okay, if it's equal, we're going to do one thing. If it's not, we're going to do something else. Okay, let's do a nice branch. So I can zoom in, help you guys out a little bit. Going on here, okay. We've got a branch. Let's handle the false first. It's a little bit easier. On false, we're going to add chef's comment. We're going to drag off of here, and we're going to format the text down here. And I'm going to copy and paste, and I'll explain it. What I've written in here is, okay, wrong ingredient, you need space, curly brackets, I for ingredient, space, and I've just put a couple of exclamation marks. We'll hit enter because there's this I here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert the name of the ingredient, and we're going to get that from up here. And we're going to say to string, because we can't convert an enum directly into text. If we connect it straight to here, it will be an enum and it wouldn't work. So we need to go to string. We can go ahead and add that to that. So that's the false handled. And keep remembering to compile and save. Okay, so what happens if it is the correct ingredient? Well, this is where we need to do things. So what I want to do is centralize our ingredient in the middle of the board so it's not hanging off the edge, and lock it in place basically so we can't knock it and do silly things. Okay, so back to our event graph, back to our handle item. We're going to say from here, attach actor to component. Okay. And okay, we don't have that stop. Excuse me, as such. So what we need to do is we need to grab a pivot. A pivot is the parent. The target is an actor, so we're going to promote that to a variable. It's a normal variable, not a local. Instead of target, we're going to call it board other actor, because we're already using other actor in another part of the pivot table, so we don't want to confuse things. Okay. Let's just double check how to change it. Okay, so all the rules we want to snap to target. So make sure you add snap to target on each of these rules. Make sure you have well simulated bodies in, or else your whatever you drop on here is likely to fall through. And this gives a return value whether it's successful or not. So we're going to hit a branch on there. Okay. And we're going to grab our board other actor that we just made, and we are going to say set mesh physics message. This is something, again, if you've been following along with the series, you should have this. So we're going to turn off the physics on that so that it again doesn't react to anything silly. I'm going to get our kitchen manager again. Oh, not kitchen, kitchen. Kitchen Manager, and we're gonna say set stage. Complete. Zoom out just a little, just to help you guys out. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Okay. And that's about all we need for that function. So now we're going to implement the function. So let's go to our event graph. And we're going to go to our on-component bin overlap on our board box here. First thing we do is see if the other does it, implement interface, and the interface is DA underscore ingredients because we're dropping in, no, not DA, BPI underscore ingredients because we're dropping ingredients onto the box. Oh, okay, 4 weeks, okay. Going to click B for branch, get ourselves a branch. If this is correct, we're going to drag in our board other actor, and we're going to set that to the other actor. Then we're going to run the new function that we just made. Click that on there. Click that on there. And that is job done. So let's go ahead and test that. So what I expect happening is if I drop the wrong ingredient on there, it will tell me. If I drop the correct ingredient on there, it should lock it into place. So let's see if I've got it right or not. Okay, so let's play the game. Okay, I'm going to select the recipe. I'm going to try to make it edit out. Okay. And we still need butter, so let's put butter on the table, which won't allow us to go to the next stage. Okay, now it says put first ingredient on chopping board, which is correct. So I'm going to try dropping the jam on it, see what goes wrong. Okay, no recipe selected. You need to select the recipe first. Okay, that shouldn't be saying that. Okay. Because we do have a recipe. Okay, let's see what happens now if I drop the bread on it. Okay, we're getting a message here. So bear with me one moment. Let me see what I may or may not have done wrong. Okay, so I found where the problem was. My mistake. In your kitchen manager, I want you to look for the give recipe function. It will be under your interfaces utils. Give recipe. Let me see, we've got nothing connected here. That's why we were getting the error message. So find your current recipe and just join it to there. Compile your kitchen manager. That should be fine for that. So let's go ahead and test that. Play. Select me a recipe. In my recipe. Okay, place ingredients on prep table, which is correct. So we're saying that. So the only thing we've got left is butter. We can see that from our pinned list. Drop that on the table. Let's try adding the wrong ingredient on the board. It's saying drop one on the board, so let's try that. Wrong ingredient, we need bread. That's exactly what we want to see. So let's pick up the bread. And there you go, we saw it jump into place, lock into place. Now it's telling us to do our next stage. That's great. The bread's not falling through the table, anything like that. Okay, good job. Now you see we're seeing this use prep table, and we've can't really focus on the ingredients. This can be a bit of a problem, so let's get rid of that. Okay. And also you may find that, in fact, let me show you what's happening. You may find the Pet Manager. I'm just going to go ahead and set this back how it was. You may find that you were able to, and we were earlier before, that you can sort of walk through the table, which is no good at all. Okay, some things block it, like that board's blocking it. Yeah, but the table we can, or certain parts of the table we can walk through, which is no good. The reason for that is because this is from our hierarchy, and the original hierarchy is set to ignore pawn to stop any collision problems when we're holding it or we're not picking up the table. So go ahead and highlight your base mesh and tell it to block the pawn in this case. Okay. Make sure your box is okay. No overlap, that's fine. Make sure this static mesh also blocks the pawn as well. Now to stop the other problem where it's showing up all the time, we're going to go to our base mesh and we're going to look for our tracer and we're going to say ignore our tracer. Make sure on our box is also ignore tracer. Our board box also ignores the tracer, and our board static mesh should also ignore tracer. Okay, so those three done. Let's test it out. So you can now see we can no longer walk through a table. This is great, and we can actually just see the ingredients on the table. We can look at the table, it has no effect. We can see the ingredients on the table. This is exactly what we want. That concludes that for today. And as always, thank you very much for watching. If you appreciate my work, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. If you don't like it, tell me why. But please be constructive. Any trolls or abusive comments will be deleted, so don't waste your time. If you have any questions, you can either join my Discord and ask the questions there, or you can ask them in the comments. If you really like my work, please consider joining my Patreon or buying me a coffee. It all helps coach the channel to buy new equipment to make things better for you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.